It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a Monday. Gary, how are you?
Doing good. Good morning. How is everybody? Thank you for being here. Well, we got so much to talk about. The border heating up a little bit, is it not? We will get to that. You know, we had talked about this, I believe, when the civil trial sometime last year came to a conclusion for E.J. Carroll and the Trump thing. And now this, what we heard over the last couple of weeks, was the money part of it. Mm-hmm. But it makes you it makes you think, what will appeals courts think about this? And we know, for example, that the evidence needed to win in civil court is less than it is in criminal court. Mm-hmm. And you look at this, and I did so much research over the weekend trying to find out, okay, what exactly was the testimony here? What is it that decades upon decades later, something that happened almost 30 years ago, what evidence do you need? And this would be in New York State Court. Right. What evidence do you need? What I found fascinating, and I would love to be, somebody who had the absolute knowledge because you were involved in it in the court. If you remember, she had a particular dress on. Mm-hmm. And her claim is when she thought that the assault took place, mm-hmm. and I'm saying assault because when you see how, for example, in the New York Times article, how, she said, well, I wouldn't, the whole not rape but a fight, whatever. Mm-hmm. And she had it, she had the date, I think it was originally 94. The dress did not exist at that time. And she wasn't sure of the actual date. That is something that would sit in my mind as a juror, and I think any other jurors out there saying, excuse me, you claim that you were sexually assaulted by a celebrity and you can't tell me the year?
Yeah, right.
You don't have the year right? The other thing is, from what I can see, and I don't know, because I can't talk to a juror, but when you see that she had, two people who said she told them way back when, individually, mm-hmm. whatever. So is that enough in New York State? Is that enough to get $83 million? And I say that because there are certain ways that you can, we know. I mean, there's nothing beyond what Democrats won't do. We saw that with Kavanaugh. Mm-hmm. That was a complete lie mm-hmm. by her. So we know that, and this came up after, the whole thing of Me Too. You always believe the woman until you find out that women lie. Some women lie. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the Me Too thing, sort of just drifted off. When people said, well, wait a minute, you can't always believe it. It's based on what the actual evidence is. But when you see the amount of $83 million, for most of us, $83 million would destroy our lives completely, right? Mm-hmm. And so you say, what is and I don't know what the answer is to this. The question would be, what is the evidence that is constitutionally needed, not in the state of New York, but overall when the appeals courts look at this? And I don't know, Trump's going to appeal. I don't know what he's going to appeal on as of yet. But what I found interesting was there was a back and forth about getting Trump's DNA mm-hmm. for the dress. And, it went back and forth, and Trump said, yeah, I do it. And all of a sudden, the DNA thing disappeared, and the judge says, no DNA evidence. Well, even if there's DNA in the dress, you don't know whether it's sperm. Mm-hmm. Well, if the DNA's on the dress, mm-hmm. you pretty much can win that civil case. Mm-hmm. But if you go in, and then it wasn't allowed to be mentioned to the jury that there was, the DNA was not to be mentioned. Well, why wouldn't you mention DNA? Remember, they brought it up first. From what I can see in the reading, Carol's attorneys are the ones that brought up getting the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came out, well, the DNA might not show that there was actually sperm there, but it meant Donald Trump was there.
You could at least say that there was something that happened on some certain day, and those two were in the same space on that day. And
yeah, exactly.
And,
right.
and the problem with it is that we said it after the end of the first trial. It's eerily quiet in the media, the details on the case itself. Most of the reporting, most of what you hear, and then this defamation case, and $83 million, is about the result of the trial. Not the actual, the allegations are mentioned, but the media didn't seem overwhelmed by this trial. And we said that at the end of the first trial. Why not? Why wasn't there more media coverage? Because imagine that. Imagine you had and this would be a scenario similar to former President Clinton. You've got DNA on a dress. Imagine that were the story. And if that had materialized, that would have been the story.
Right.
And at the end of the first trial, the media reported the results of the trial. That entire story didn't have legs.
And think about it in a civil trial where the defense is saying, we want the DNA evidence brought forward, and the judge says, no DNA evidence can be mentioned at all.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Because it doesn't matter. And when I was, and I read this comes from reading a number of different articles out there, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
When they said, well, if there was DNA, doesn't mean that there was sperm. What are you talking? If there's DNA on a dress that still exists after 25 years, and it's Trump, that's your slam dunk.
Right.
So all you need to do on a case that's 30 years old is say it happened. Have two other people say, yeah, she told us. But then it basically comes down to he said, she said.
Yeah.
And I just would love to see how the appeals courts are going to look at that, because what is the evidence needed to destroy somebody's life financially? And I'm not saying it does it to Trump, but I'm saying that amount, if you look at the precedent that's set there based on he said, she said, you could destroy anybody else's life through civil court.
Well,
so
the political targets are never ending.
Right. So
and you don't have to be a billionaire to go after someone and try and take everything that they have, because for most people, 83 million would be far beyond everything they own. You could destroy them completely just by creating a political target and saying it's the case, and then knowing you're going to get a friendly jury. It's just going to go your way the whole time.
There's some things in civil cases, for example, I remember in New York, that if you were involved in a DUI accident and you were the driver and you didn't have money and you leased a vehicle, they could go after the people that leased you the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that because I know somebody who got one of the biggest settlements ever in New York State. And when that happened, they changed the law because it's like, well, okay, but the people that lease you the vehicle aren't responsible in any way for what you do on your own. But you used to be able to go after in New York State the car manufacturer.
Oh yeah,
who leased you the vehicle, which means instead of buying a vehicle, you leased it. I'm not talking about renting a vehicle, but that would be the same thing as if I rented a vehicle and did something responsible, and they went after the rental car company for that.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, okay, that is. And so initially when you saw that, you would say, well, that isn't a fair civil law. I mean, that doesn't seem, and so they ended up changing it. I just wonder how the appeals courts will look at this, because the question is there a presumption? What is the standard? It's a lower level of evidentiary standards in civil court. How low does it go? Can you win a massive amount on just a pure he said, she said, or did what make the difference in the jury members? Okay, let's give all the possibilities. They all hated Trump, or just giving all the possibilities, or they looked at the two women that testified under oath that she told them, even though I think one of them wasn't sure exactly, when it happened and where it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But for most people, when you see all the things that they have, they look and go, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? It does bring up in your mind, if a jury member, well, does this really, do we have a preponderance of evidence that shows that this happened? Maybe not in a criminal, what you would need in a criminal trial, but a preponderance of evidence. Well, they had no evidence. There is no evidence that he was ever there. There's no camera stuff that he was ever there. The other interesting thing is you saw it mirrored a Law and Order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
What she did. You look at this, you go, it's just, there are just so many things. And then her statements, and it's like, okay, she might just be an oddball. If you're going to say, well, you're allowed to be an oddball even if you got raped or sexually assaulted.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with whether it happened or not.
Right, exactly. It's, what is the evidence? Is the evidence that two other people said, oh, yeah, she said that at one time? That's a, preponderance of the evidence in a civil case? I just don't know.
I guess if you have the right jury. Because tell me what else applies here. It comes down to what you can convince the jury of.
Right.
And, the other thing, too, his appearance, because in a civil court, in a civil case, the accused doesn't have to show up. They don't have to be there. And he wanted to be there. And my question would be, because it could go either way. Forget about even putting him on the stand. If he's in the room, they say he's a great convincer. All of a sudden, people, are smiling because he's in the room. Well, it's a different setting in a courthouse. Because if you've been told these things as a jury, or if you've just read about them in the news, and he walks in that setting as the accused, you may already have a preconceived verdict in your mind. You may look at him and go, oh, yeah, well, he can be a bully. Oh, yeah, he can be. And we know of things he's said in the past. And, okay, we're just going to apply all that all at once in this case. And even if there's no evidence in this case, it's only about what witnesses say that she said.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Still enough. And there is...
And by the way, a law that was created, as his lawyers, and you look at it, you go, oh, so this law was created where you could now go back 30 years? Mm-hmm. And as soon as it passed, she went after Trump, and it's like, was this law passed just for Trump?
Right.
And you make...
why stop at 30? If you have think about this, if you have any...
Well, I don't know. Does it stop at 30? I don't know if it does.
Well, I mean, if they were going to draw a line on the law, why would you draw any line? And maybe this state law doesn't draw a line. The point is, you could go back and create accusations over somebody, and it wouldn't matter. Imagine 80-year-old president. And the accusations that this is was one of the problems with hashtag Me Too is that at first everyone in the court of public opinion was guilty. It didn't matter. Well, not everyone is guilty. Not everyone is innocent. But when you're going to go through this, you should have the evidence on conviction, and you should have stronger evidence than we saw here, even in a civil setting. The burden of proof is different. And on defamation, for saying that he wasn't guilty and that she was lying?
As if because the jury says you're guilty,
yeah,
you have to say you're guilty.
Right. And you can't say otherwise?
Yeah.
That's not defamation.
Not where I've ever heard it before.
No.
Because I've seen it in many cases, in criminal cases.
Right.
Where it says, I'm not guilty. I didn't do it.
Right.
These people are lying.
Right.
I don't remember any defamation cases on criminal cases.
Right.
There may be one out there. I don't recall it because that would be pretty big news if it happened.
Right.
We got a great show ahead. 866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Starting and charging system-related issues are one of the most common causes of winter breakdowns. So when your batteries talk, it's important you listen. Knowing the warning signs that could indicate your electrical system needs attention can help you avoid getting stuck out in the cold this winter. Have your batteries inspected by a professional technician if you smell any unusual or strong odors coming from the battery box. A pungent odor could indicate chemicals are escaping from a damaged or overcharged battery.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. And congrats to Kansas City and San Francisco in the Super Bowl.
All right.
I didn't watch anything, so I was like,
yeah.
I just when I woke up, I saw that San Francisco won. But I'm telling you, it's almost getting tough to watch any sports now. Mm-hmm. I was watching the Farmers Golf Tournament. From Torrey Pines over the weekend, and it was a Saturday was the last round. I don't think they wanted to go up against the NFL yesterday, so they must have started earlier. Well, there is the announcer, and this would have been CBS, and it's the Farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how they talk to the sponsors, a lot of times the CEOs from these banks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, here we have from Farmers, here is the head of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Could you please tell us why this is so important? Click.
Yep.
Done with golf.
Yeah.
It's just like, can't get away from, and the first thing I thought was, this is not the audience to be promoting this to.
I don't know.
The golf audience.
I don't know any audience that's left for them anymore. Because, you would have to be on the you'd have to be somebody that is the chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer to be interested in that conversation.
I know.
So your audience is almost nothing for something like that.
The most influential radio show in the world. On now, at this moment, Red Eye Radio.
Well, we should be listening to that. That's what we should be listening to. That sounds like a great radio show.
Well, I spent would have been Saturday, listening a little bit to see Mike Johnson, the speaker, with a bunch of Republicans.
Yeah.
There. So what's in the bill?
Yeah.
Because everything I'm reading, whether it's liberal or conservative, says the $4,000 a day to $5,000 a day is a figure. And Langford from Oklahoma, you told me, I didn't see him say it, but you just told me he said there is nothing like $5,000 in the bill at all.
Right. He was on the CBS Sunday morning program and said it.
So did they change it? Has that changed with negotiations? Because this has been known for a couple of weeks as that's what the number was.
Well, and why didn't we hear that challenge right when Ted Cruz said it?
Yeah.
Several days ago. Why didn't you have any other GOPers say, hey, whoa. That's not it. That's not what's happening. You had to wait till Sunday morning?
But I didn't.
Did something change between the time that Ted Cruz was talking about it and Sunday morning?
It could have, yeah.
Yeah. Here's a part of the quote. And he also appeared somewhere else. He was also on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream. This is Langford from Oklahoma. Here's part of the quote. It would be absolutely absurd for me to agree to 5,000 people a day. This bill focuses on getting us to 0 illegal crossings a day. There's no amnesty. Okay, let's see the bill.
I'm reading, this is CBS News from yesterday. All right. Updated at 7:40 last night. All right. And the power which Mr. Biden referred to as an authority to shut down the border on Friday would be mandated after the average daily migrant crossings hit 5,000 over 7 days or 8,500 in a single day.
8,500.
It could also be activated on a discriminatory basis after average daily crossings surpass 4,000 in a week. There would also be a limit on the number of days each year the president could invoke the authority. Why? When the authority is invoked, migrants who cross the U.S. illegally would not be allowed to ask for asylum and would face swift deportation to Mexico or their home country. Exceptions would be made for those who pass screenings for other more difficult to obtain forms of humanitarian refuge, including protection under the United States Convention Against Torture. Current U.S. law allows most migrants on American soil to request asylum, even if they enter the country unlawfully. Thing is, why would you limit the amount of times the president could do that?
Right.
Why would you limit?
There shouldn't be any limit at all.
No, it should be the border should be closed. If you give any leeway to this administration, you know that they will take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But it's not going anywhere. And
You give this president discretion, he's going to do. By the way, without giving him discretion, he's going to do what he wants to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't get that at all.
Why would there be a limit on the number of days each year the president could invoke the authority to not allow people in?
Right.
When you really should be invoking that authority every single day.
Yeah.
Right? According to current law.
Yep.
Why do we need to change the law that it is right now, which is you get sent back?
We don't.
So we'll see if that was the change. They went from days to a week.
Well, here's my question to the GOP and the Senate. Tell me what deal you're going to make with the Democrats. There is no deal without give and take.
Well, I wonder if Democrats, because now it says other border-related proposals that will likely be in any deal include expanding the scope of the expedited removal authority, instructing immigration officials to decide asylum cases within 6 months as opposed to the current years-long time frame, raising the standard of proof in initial asylum interviews. But there aren't any asylum interviews, really.
Right. Right.
It's not like they sit them down and have a long discussion with them. Those who pass their initial humanitarian protection screenings, including when the shutdown authority is in place, would generally be released pending full review of their cases with immediate eligibility to work in the United States. Again, none of this means anything until you see it in the bill.
Well, that's it. And Langford said on Face the Nation, because he was asked about a head count. Well, we don't really have a head count yet because they need to be able to go through it and read it. No kidding. This is the whole thing about the GOP right now. It's all over the place. They were blaming Trump for the deal on a bill that they're not letting anybody see. All these things are false.
Well,
prove it.
Well, do you get the feeling that everything's being thrown out as a trial balloon?
Yeah.
Then in the initial negotiations,
Yeah.
it was per day.
Yeah.
Because they never denied it. Did they only deny it when they changed it because they couldn't sell that even to a significant number of Republican senators, and it looked so bad that they decided to change it to a week, but then upped it to $8,500 a day?
Right. I mean, tell me what the give and take is. Show me the give and take for any of those handful of GOPers in the Senate that backs this bill. Show me what you're getting and show me what you're giving up. Because I don't buy the whole funding for Ukraine being part of that deal. Oh, that's what they're giving, that being the only thing they're giving up. I don't buy that.
Well, they're giving up that it's a looser immigration law than currently is on the books that the administration is not paying attention
That's
to.
what I believe to be the case. Let's see the bill.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Let us see the bill.
Yeah.
But I just get the feeling that since nobody debated that over like a 2-week period, that it was the 4,000 and 5,000, and all of a sudden, once the first time they do it,
Yeah.
is yesterday, and then you see, okay, it changes a little bit. You have to ask, has it changed in the negotiations in the last couple of days? Because the Republican senator said, we can't sell this to our constituents.
Right.
And this is what happens when you don't have transparency with the bill.
Exactly.
Or the bill-making process
Exactly.
at all. And you have some Republicans not wanting to be upfront and transparent with what's going on until they believe they can sell it.
Right. And where are
Yeah.
the other GOP members that are on board with this bill? We saw Langford. Where are the other ones?
I'm assuming it would be Lindsey Graham,
Mhm.
Joni Ernst,
Mhm.
whatever. What's his name? Romney, the robot. I couldn't think of his name. They say they have 10 to 12, but you saw where the Oklahoma GOP came out completely against Langford.
Oh yeah.
Basically said we disown you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's been going on. They've been kind of losing their grip on him for a few months. And, again, him trying to make the case, I would never agree. I would never agree. Okay. Prove it. Show us what you're backing.
Yeah.
Put that bill out there, not for the GOP members of the Senate to read, for the American people. Post it. Let's see it. And why has it taken so long for that to happen? Why are we this far into the debate without seeing this bill? It's likely because of what you said. It's changing.
Yeah.
The GOP members in the Senate that are on board with it are grappling, Gary, like Obama with gay marriage. No, you're not. You're running and you're hiding. Put it out there. Give it some daylight. Let's see it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
Is it not?
Nope.
Is it fair for the American public, since this debate's been going on and they're doing it in secret and then they just let a little bit out at a time as a trial, that's what I believe it is. It's a trial balloon. Well, can we sell this? Can we sell this?
Exactly.
Can we sell this?
Langford's saying, when asked about a head count, well, we don't really have a head count because they haven't read it.
Yeah.
They haven't read it. The ones who have to vote on it. Much less the people of the United States. That's stupid. I don't believe you. Prove me wrong. Put the bill out for everybody to see. Man, I'd love to see the original text, too. You know how on social media, when you edit something, it shows that it's been edited, and you can go back and see the original version?
Yeah,
I want to see that.
I would like to see that over the last couple of weeks.
Right.
The 3 weeks ago to now.
Well, no, I think the American people...
Actually, they started discussing it, in December, right?
Yeah, it goes back to December before their break.
What was the initial bill? I would like to see that transition.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I would think that would be an important part of the process. In fact, it is an important part of the process. I want to see how this whole thing evolved. Because if there were changes, I want to know what you were backing from the beginning.
No, that's a wonderful point.
Because I need to know where you were, and you're only being pressured to change it.
I love this. Trump admits to trying to tank border deal to prevent a Biden win.
Yeah. Exactly. They blame it on Trump, and they admit that their own party, most of the members of their own party haven't seen the bill. You can't blame there's nothing to blame Trump for because we haven't seen it.
And we know where Trump stands on a border bill.
Right. He
stands where the vast majority of Americans stand.
Yeah.
No, nobody gets in illegally.
Right.
And we do, stay in Mexico. You see, Elon Musk even came out and said, you don't need any of this.
No,
the
you
Biden
don't.
could do it with just stroke of a pen. Remain in Mexico.
Right.
That solves the vast majority of and that's the other thing, too, that the Democrats are lying. Here's something I'd say as a Republican. You know something? We don't want to help enable your lies. And the president's been lying that he had nothing to do with this when we know the stay in Mexico policy caused this.
Yeah.
And Johnson was out there. They were down at the border over the weekend. And, and basically said the deal will be dead on arrival. I think these Republicans, again, they're saying, look, to the Democrats, you got to give us something that we can have, even if it's defeated, at least a chance of a political win. I still don't see it if what CBS is reporting is accurate. Mm-hmm. Because still most Americans would say, well, shouldn't it be zero and we work on legal immigration?
Right.
Where do we get these arbitrary numbers?
Right.
Well, the arbitrary numbers are to get a political win for the Democrats. All right, we can let some in. We can still continue it. Maybe not at the pace that we wanted to. But if you may get to the point where the far left doesn't want it, because the far left wants open borders.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look. Show me what you're giving the Democrats here, aside from anything for Ukraine. You're giving them something on the border. Prove me wrong.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So will be interesting to see where this goes here, because the Democrats and those Republicans will be talking like, okay, this is the plan now to shut the border. And the fact is, it is a law that is not as strict as the current law on the books. And the reality is, and Elon Musk said it, and everybody knows, every Democrat not right now listening knows, the president could close the border right now. It's not about money. The Border Patrol agents have said it's not about money.
Right.
It's about policy. And I don't trust the Democrats at all when it comes. There's no reason to trust them on the border.
Right.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, it was interesting because when we look at what's going on with Texas, and there's a headline there, Texas AG refuses to surrender control of border park to feds following the Supreme Court ruling, which really wasn't a ruling. Okay, it was a stay of what the lower court did.
They granted the emergency request by the administration.
Right. But it was interesting because, as we said, you had the governor make the legal case, saying that this is an invasion. Did you agree where Turley said that's going to be a tough one to sell?
Yeah, right.
Because invasion normally meant back in those times that it had to be a foreign country that was invading.
Right.
And not that can't be part of it, but you and I talked about how you need to expand when this gets to the Supreme Court, you're going to have to expand the argument that you're making, because the argument just isn't that it's an invasion. The argument is that the federal government, in a calculated way, in a premeditated way, is attempting to damage your state. What is your recourse when, in a calculated way, and you can make the case that they're not following the letter of the law, and by not following the letter of the law, they are damaging you. What is the recourse, that you actually have? That is to me different than the technical version of invasion.
Right.
But when, if you're going to use the argument that an invasion under the Founding Fathers was strictly a foreign army invasion, because you can make the case that this isn't a foreign invasion because the president has authorized it. And so if the president has authorized people come across, and the president knows that the cartels are there, because here's the other thing too. Can you look at the the cartels as an invasion into the United States and what's going on there? But go beyond the technical definition of an invasion, and still, as you and I have said, the argument that we've always viewed as the number one argument is the fact that, is it okay for the federal government to intentionally hurt states and do it by not following the letter of the law? To me, that is the key. And it's the letter of the law, not based on what an invasion is under the Constitution, but what law exists already from Congress. So it's multi-pronged. I would still go with the invasion, because you never know what you're going to get, because who would ever suspect that the president would work against the best interest of states? Whoever thought that the president would not pay attention to the law, the letter of the law, and purposely damage not only the state of Texas, but liberal sanctuary cities, as we have found out, by allowing so many millions to cross. And since that is beyond the scope of what anybody ever thought would happen on the border with just the numbers themselves, the state of Texas could make the case, it may not be a foreign army, but it's an invasion, and it's an invasion. And as you notice with the invasion, they also, Abbott made sure that they mentioned the cartels.
Right.
That the cartels being able to do what they do is an invasion, and the fentanyl's an invasion, and all that. And the other thing that I saw, I forgot who said it over the weekend, and this is where it was some Democrat had no idea that Texas was once its own country. Did you see that? They had no idea.
Right, yeah.
But he made the point. He said, do you think that Texas would have ever joined the Union? And this is a great point, that Texas would have ever joined the Union if they knew the federal government could purposely damage them, that the federal government would not protect the border. I'm like, it's a solid point looking back, and so when you start looking at, all right, what was the original intent of the founding fathers, you may be able to say, well, what was the original intent of Texas to join the United States?
Right.
Did they give up their protection of the border? Because the United States has decided to, specifically the executive branch, which goes right to Biden, would advocate their responsibility to protect the border and keep the border closed. And by the way, we all know, when you see Biden out there, you send this bill to me and I'll close the border tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
See, this is the thing.
Yeah.
They know how damaging this is. They're scrambling for anything. All he has to do is say, shut down the border. That's all he's got to do.
Right.
Shut down the border.
He doesn't need the bill to close the border.
Doesn't need the bill, doesn't need any of it.
Right.
That's the big lie that Democrats, and now by the Republican senators going along with this bill, they are enabling that thought.
Right. Yeah, and so, you have this situation. I am interested on hearing and I guess we'll decide, or we'll find out soon enough, how they're going to argue the whole thing on invasion. Because certainly the original meaning is a sovereign nation invading your borders.
Mm-hmm.
It's armies invading your borders. It's military invading your borders. But you have a group of individuals here that, are from, my gosh, well, here's the problem. We really don't know every nation that they're from because of the millions of gotaways. But your border is being overrun, and I don't know what else to call it.
Well, here's another point, too, that you can make with invasion. As we know, the threats that we face today of invasion are not just organized countries. They're terrorist groups.
Exactly.
Since we know, what is it, over between 200 and 300, maybe something like that, people on the terrorist watch list have been apprehended. Mm-hmm. We don't know how many terrorists from our enemies have come into the country because we have 1.9 million gotaways.
Right.
Can you sell that because when you look at it, we now declare war against terrorist organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that threats and invasions to the country can be done. Well, you can go back and look at 9/11.
Right.
They all overstayed their visas.
Right.
They were breaking the law. So is the administration, by not following what our immigration law is, enabling an invasion of terrorists into the country? That's not that's not far-fetched, because you're still being. We know they've been over because we've caught them. 1.9 million are in. We know what happened in 9/11. Can you make that case can you make that case to the Supreme Court? And what would the founding fathers have thought about that? Would they have viewed that as an invasion if these type of terrorist groups that have worldwide reach and already succeeded in 9/11?
Well, and not only have we declared war on them, they've declared war on us.
Yes.
That was the finding of the 9/11 Commission, but it was also the finding. It was also something that was official. Go back to the cave interview, Osama bin Laden with then CNN reporter Peter Arnett, and it talked about it. And if you dismiss that, then you just have to dismiss 9/11. You're not paying attention. If you dismiss that, you have to dismiss completely all of the attacks on U.S. interests. You're not paying attention. That declaration has never been rescinded. There have been no modern leaders of any known terrorist organization that have come out and said, we do not wish war on the U.S. We want peace with the U.S. That's never happened. They've declared war on us. They are the enemy. And it makes no difference if they're part of a sovereign nation's order to be here or not, although we can bring Iran into the discussion if you like.
But we've already, through federal law, made it known that we declare war not just on countries, but on terrorist groups.
Yep.
So can terrorist groups be viewed as an invasion into the United States when we know over the last couple of years, over 300 apparently people on the terrorist watch list have been entered and apprehended by authorities? How many else have come in? And the president not following the letter of the law is what is causing this invasion of not only, because we know they've come in here, we know the history of 9/11, that they took advantage because we weren't clamping down hard enough on people that overstayed their visas. The fact of this an invasion that's being enabled by the administration.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think you can, because of what the country has done when it has come over, really since 9/11, to designate terrorist groups, that we're at war at. Even before 9/11, that was the case with Al-Qaeda, whatever, which gives the president the justification without Congress to go after these groups and go inside these countries and bomb them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have found to be enemies of the United States. Well, if you're an enemy in the United States, are you an invader? And if the president says, to hell with the border, we'll allow everyone in, are you enabling terrorists that wish to destroy this nation to come into this country? And can you view that as a modern form of invasion, that it doesn't have to be an army with guns?
That was my point.
It can be sleeper cells in your country waiting to blow up or create another 9/11.
Well, and also we have to include the cartels.
Yes.
Collectively,
Right.
They are criminal organizations with great power and great funds. I mean, they are funded very well, and they're here to do damage. They're not here to invest in the USA. They're here to sell drugs. They're here to move people, enslave people. They're here to do damage, and they don't care anything about U.S. laws. That's an invasion. And there's really no way around that. There is no other term that applies here. That's an invasion.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Smart owner-operators make every single week as profitable as possible. One trip is not enough time to be considered profitable or unprofitable, and an entire month may be too much time to manage. 1 week is the right amount of time to deal with efficiently. To do so, look at the advantages and disadvantages of every day of the week. Match trip length to the optimum day of the week. Plan to deliver on the day you have the best opportunity of getting a load. Your personal weekly plan will vary depending on the weekly delivery flow cycle of your region, typical length of haul, personal requirements, and other factors. What's important is to have a specific weekly plan that helps you be successful. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Even Elon Musk getting involved in it, calling out President Biden for waiting on a bipartisan Senate deal to shut down the southern border, saying the president has the authority to do so by means of an executive order. Duh. No laws need to be passed, Musk wrote. All that's needed is an executive order to require proof before granting an asylum hearing. That's how it used to be. Musk's comments was in response to a statement by Biden, who said on Friday he would shut the border down when it becomes overwhelmed if Congress gives him the emergency authority under a border deal. He has the authority already.
Well, and what do you mean when it becomes overwhelmed? We're having this whole discussion because it's overwhelmed,
Because
and you
it
know
is over.
it.
Yep. In October, Biden requested Congress approve funding for securing the border in a legislative package that includes an additional 1,300 Border Patrol agents, 375 immigration judges, 1,600 asylum officers, and more than 100 inspection machines to detect fentanyl. Well, as the Border Patrol Union has said, all their representatives, it's not the money we need. Money is not the problem. Policy is the problem. And the whole thing is with the Border Patrol agents, the immigration judges, the asylum officers. The reason he wanted them was to do what? Process more people into the country more quickly.
Yep.
And everybody knows that.
Ramp up what they're doing now.
Every Democrat listening right now knows that it's a load of horse manure that the president is throwing out.
Right.
They know it.
Well, it's my whole position with the GOP and the Senate that are on board with this. Tell me what you're giving them on the border.
Well, you're making border law less secure
Exactly.
from what it currently is now.
Because, if Langford is saying, and he's, made 2 appearances over the weekend, saying that, well, no, it's, this is false, then tell me what you're giving them then. There's give and take on both sides. Are you saying the Democrats get nothing on the border? That they only get the funding for Ukraine? I don't buy that for a second. You're going to give them a political win. Why? Why?
Yeah. Well, you give them the political win even based on the new information that has come out from CNN.
Right.
That it may be fewer people allowed to come in. That still is, I don't think many Americans would say what border law right now is that Biden could shut down the border right now.
Right.
But the fact is, Republicans are now going to make it where the border laws that we have today are less stringent than they are right now. And Biden has not abided by what the law is now. What ties him absolutely to anything in this particular border law as it exists right now? When you sit there and say, oh, the president can only a few times a year call for this emergency to shut down the border, done, out, gone.
Yep.
It's that simple. Because, as we know, he won't abide by the law now. And he's lying about the border and has continued to lie about the border. Why would anyone trust him?
You wouldn't.
No. Yeah, it's amazing.
And there is absolutely no reason to give them anything. None. You want to do a deal on Ukraine funding? Do a clean bill. And let the American people see that.
Yeah, tying one to the other, whether Republicans want to do it or Democrats want to do it, because in a way both do.
Well, because the thing is that it implies, by tying them, it implies, well, we'll get what we want on the border. Well, sorry, all the trust on that part of it is over. You're going to lay down like the GOP way too often does. No. No, absolutely not.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Wow, what a weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And, you know, it's interesting. I see more and more stories about how this is going to be the longest general election season ever. Well, it pretty much was going into the primary season for the GOP. I mean, technically that wasn't the case, but now there's really no doubt in anybody's mind that Trump is the nominee for the GOP. Actually, there's more doubt, and I heard more talk about it over the weekend, there's more doubt about Biden being the nominee for the Democratic Party now than there is for Trump being the GOP nomination or nominee. Oh. And I just, you know, I don't know what that looks like because over the weekend, you know, he's campaigning. He's out there. They're not hiding him. Sorry, Van Jones. He's not going to go into hiding. I know you think that's a good idea, and a lot of people think they should be doing that, but they're not. They're not hiding him. He's everywhere.
The story I liked, I can't remember the exact timeline, but it was since we were last on the air on Thursday night, Friday morning. And so I forgot when I read it that said that early on, and it may still be under consideration in the Trump camp, that Robert Kennedy Jr. would be the vice presidential nominee. By the time we got to Sunday, the Trump campaign had said, absolutely not.
Right.
Because I saw that and went, you got to be. When I first read that, I said, you got to be kidding me. I didn't buy that one.
Yeah,
I really didn't. I didn't buy that when I saw it, when I read it.
Because the story said, you know, that they asked him early on.
Yes.
And that they approached him early on about being the Veep candidate.
And that it was still under consideration, too, though.
Well, that was I saw a separate story later in the weekend, but there was the first story I saw only focused on early on, and I thought, okay. I didn't buy that one because it was way too early.
I thought the same thing.
Anyone in the campaign, if you're talking months and months ago, you're going to wait for this season to shape up because you don't know who's going to be who and where they're going to be. I dare say, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, there was a time when Nikki Haley might have been acceptable, certainly more acceptable as a Veep pick than she is now, because I think she's not acceptable at all as a Veep pick for Trump. His base doesn't want her at all. You might have been able to make that case probably before the Disney comments. You might have even been able to forgive, or his loyal supporters, may have been able to forgive her Disney comments even, but everything else, you know, now that that she said, it's just evolved into nothing. So that's the reason you don't jump on anything early on.
Well, think about it. Because I do think early on, and then Kayleigh McEnany coming out is as loyal of a Trump supporter as you could possibly imagine.
Right.
She is now out.
Right.
Because she had suggested, she didn't say Nikki Haley's name, but you and I brought it up a couple of weeks ago when she said Trump needs to bring, get somebody that will get him suburban women. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, then the only one out there that it's not going to be Carrie Lake.
No.
That will get you suburban women, right?
Right.
It's not going to be Tucker Carlson, just some of the name,
right.
That's going to get you suburban women. So she's talking about Nikki Haley, and then Trump completely just eviscerates her and disowns her completely as being anti-MAGA and a rhino.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that was... So at that point we said, okay, it's not going to be Nikki Haley. And if it's not going to be Nikki Haley, which we knew it wasn't going to be, certainly I don't believe that they ever considered Robert Kennedy Jr. as a vice president.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't buy it. I
don't buy that.
And if they did, then somebody in the campaign was smoking something good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's and him saying that he knows who the Veep pick is, already. I don't put too much into that. Because the question would be, well, do you know, by that, do you mean you know who you are going to ask? Or you actually have somebody that you've asked and they've agreed to it? That's a huge difference.
They'd have to agree to it.
Exactly. And
I really think...
I think it may be Liz Cheney, but I could be wrong.
Well, the thing is, though, we had said this about... I'm trying to think. Was it after the October 7th thing? But we had thrown out the name Elise Stefanik before she came up about 10 days ago as a possible Veep pick.
Mm-hmm.
So besides, I have no idea who he's going to pick. None.
Yeah, I don't.
Because it's like, what does Trump want in a vice president?
Right.
Well, initially he wanted, when you think about it, when he picked Mike Pence, Pence really didn't say much.
Right.
And always said the right things early on until you got to the whole, January 6th debacle. And, and that's when he was on his, he was on his way out, but they were on their way out anyway. Mm-hmm. But when you look at it overall in that period, somebody who's not saying a lot, but has a reputation of being a fiscal and social conservative, that was a good mix for Trump. I don't know.
Yeah, especially with evangelicals.
Right.
I don't know if that was a deal that he made, basically that an unsaid deal. I think he had the evangelicals anyway, but, it wasn't for foreign relations experience, which, by the way, is the reason that George W. Bush picked Dick Cheney and the reason we were told that Obama picked Biden. Wow. Think about that. Think about that sell back in 2008. Oh, Biden's foreign policy experience. Are you kidding me?
We see it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, we'll get into this following the top of the hour, but what a disaster now. This thing is escalating, and Biden has no idea what to do, but this is what happens. This is just, the crazy thing about it is Biden has enabled the funding of the terrorist groups that have now killed Americans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 150 attacks. And still, it's like it's you hit us, we hit you. You hit us, and it keeps expanding and expanding. And now we have Americans dead, at least 25 injured, many critically in that drone attack. It was warned it was going to come to this point, and everything is laid on the steps of Joe Biden on this. Everything.
Yeah.
Because everything from the debacle of the Afghanistan pullout when he lied to the American public about what the generals told him to do, to just the complete cluster going on now in a White House defending that money isn't fungible.
Right.
We can give all this money to Iran and it will never get to the terrorists.
Right.
They're treating the American public like idiots when it comes to our national security.
Right.
Because this is about our national security.
Yep. And, and it's, look, I right now, the crisis on the southern border and the international crisis that's brewing that has not come to full fruition yet, those two things are the things that would keep you awake. And they do.
Well, and then they're obvious lies. I mean, the president now, I will close the border.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Right.
After you created this complete, horrible, chaotic mess. It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Also coming up following the top of the hour, when I saw this one, I went, 2/3 of U.S. taxpayers say they spend too much on federal income taxes.
What about the other third?
Well, no, but you have a huge overlap there of people that pay no taxes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge because over 50% of taxpayers don't pay anything.
Right.
And so this is 66, which means you got a huge overlap of people that pay no taxes that are saying, we pay too much in taxes, and they don't pay any. In fact, a significant portion of them are probably getting money back and will get more money back if the Republicans, agree to a more expanded child tax credit.
Right.
So 2/3 of U.S. taxpayers, and we'll go through the whole list because there's more, but 2/3 say they spend too much on federal income taxes, including the people, a significant portion. It's got to be tens of millions. If you talk about 2/3, which is 66, would be 66%, which means roughly 16% or more, 16%, 17% or more of taxpayers who are paying nothing believe they're paying too much.
Which is to say they're not getting enough back.
That's the only way I can look at it.
And what's happened over the last couple of years? Well, for those that were getting that expanded child tax credit, that affected their returns for the following year. When that ended in that December, in April, when they were doing their taxes or whenever they did their taxes that spring, they got less back because that expanded child tax credit, a great part of that was paid up front. And remember the media warning everyone, be prepared. You're not going to get as much as you think in return. Look, they've made an industry out of it. We'll get you more money back. We'll get you more money back. We'll get you more money back. Yeah. Well, if you're not getting enough back, you're saying, I'm paying too much in taxes. That's a significant portion of that group.
And even the Republicans that are promoting the expanded child tax credit, talking about tax relief, it's not. It's welfare.
It's not tax relief. Call it what it is.
Yeah.
Vote on that on a clean bill.
And to
see how far it gets.
Right. So any Republicans that are promoting that, you're lying to the American public.
Yep.
Stop lying to the American public.
Right.
Don't be Democrats.
It's welfare.
Yeah. So that's just intellectual. There is no anger or tone to that. If you wish to do that and expand the welfare system, then expand the welfare system.
Call it welfare.
And take the hit or the compliments from the public on it.
Right. You may get a number of people voting and saying, oh, yeah, no, we want the whatever you want to call it. We want it.
Right.
Vote on it on a clean bill. Call it what it is. At least be honest about it.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy Monday.
Hello, Newman.
Hello, Newman. Yeah.
What a week. How was your, by the way, we're 2 hours into the show. There's so much going on, but how was your weekend? Good? You have a good weekend?
Uneventful. Not much going on. My wife started transplanting some of the seedlings for the spring garden, vegetable garden. What was it? It was crazy. It was like 20 white onions, 20 red onions, and 20 of something else. I forget what she planted. Full day in the garden, basically.
We had
A backyard is a vegetable garden, basically.
Yeah.
I have, grass in it, but, it, in my opinion, looks so much better because there are so many plants, pretty much all but about, only about 2 or 3 months, maybe. We had up until the big freeze. We actually still have carrots and radishes, and they're doing very well. And lettuce, a lot of lettuce, different types of lettuce that are out there. You can basically walk out in my backyard and make a really great salad. And my wife does it all the time.
Well, my life has come down to doing everything I possibly can so I can sleep before I come into work.
Yeah.
That's the only thing, and you know that for the last, really it started last fall a little bit in November, and I was like, okay, I sleep great when I come home because I sleep twice a day.
Right.
I just have not been able to sleep, and it just, I can do it, it just isn't enjoyable at all. Mm-hmm. And so yesterday to get ready, I did my resistance weight training for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And then did 10 miles on the bike. And
right.
And sprinted. And
right. Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I probably got about 70% of the sleep that I wanted to get, which is like 1,000% more than I was getting. So,
yeah, right.
So I'm like, I'm wide awake here. I'm very happy. And I'm like, do I got to do that every day? Do I have to go out? But the good thing is I worked out so hard and I came in, I told you before, I said, I got no muscle pain at all. No. Apparently this working out stuff all the time, hopefully it'll be beneficial.
Yeah.
I could have done the opposite, and just, drank and smoked all weekend, but
yeah,
I decided to make it athletic weekend.
Exactly. Well, since you don't smoke.
Exactly.
There's that.
and don't drink much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was at a place and I was walking through and I saw so many people drinking, actually a couple of different places, one restaurant, and there was one table that had mimosas and margaritas going.
Ew.
Yeah. And there were only like 3 adults at that table. But that table it was around noonish on Saturday. I thought, well, all right. Why not? It was a beautiful weekend. We had a really great weekend. Yesterday, the weather was incredible. Today, 70 degrees.
Oh, yes.
Tomorrow,
yes.
72.
And all I'm doing is because Frizola hit like in 21, I think on Thanksgiving, on Valentine's Day night. Mm-hmm. I think that's when it hit. Mm-hmm. So for me, I always look at that date of February 20th. So I'm looking at the long-range forecast, and we're 2 weeks out, and so far it looks great. And I'm like, just another 8 days. Just another 8 days. Mm-hmm. Get me to February 20th. And if we don't have any nasty weather, not that we couldn't have still get to freezing, whatever.
Right.
But odds are when you get past that, you're not going to have the -3 degrees below zero again, which is now the benchmark of bad weather for Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I hope that's the case. I mean, I took down all my shrub covers and everything else, and putting some daylight on everything. I'm already in spring mode, so I have no tolerance for any more cold weather. I'm done. So
I know, same with me.
no more.
So yeah, what was I was going to say? What was it that there was something about climate change or something? What was it? I can't remember. There's something on climate change.
Yeah,
I'll figure it out what it is.
well, I looked at it was pretty interesting because we joke about when that cold blast came a couple of weeks ago. It was like, all right, we're going to have our week of winter, but actually that was unless we get something else, that was it. We really have not had much of a winter at all.
No, we have not. And let me just look at this: 71 today, 73 tomorrow, 71 Wednesday.
Yeah,
every
I'm
day.
loving that.
A little bit of a cold streak, which would be mid 50s and low 40s or high 30s, and then back again.
Which is, they said more of this stuff that's coming through is more of a Pacific front. It's not a, huge
Arctic front.
northern Arctic front. So
Yay!
yeah, I mean, I'm good with that. I'm absolutely good with that. I just want to be able to, for me, it's about, getting around, going and doing the things. And I have 4-wheel drive. I can get anywhere I want to get. It's just that it's not fun. I mean, I could go fishing when it's freezing cold outside. I don't know what the bite would be like on the species that I'm targeting, but probably not great, I'm guessing. I've never actually done that. I've never done any ice fishing, and that's something very different altogether.
I know the climate change thing I was thinking of. Trump came out and pounded Sean Fain from the UAW.
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about? He goes, here's a guy that went right along with the automobile companies killing UAW jobs by promoting the electric vehicles, and he's still doing it today.
Right. Yeah.
Did you see now who wrote it over the weekend? I forgot who had the story. That Trump wants to. The discussion is 60% tariffs on everything that comes from China and 10% for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
As you said, Walmart will close down.
Walmart would have to close down. Walmart would basically have to close down.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's likely not going to happen. But, look, there are some things with China you and I, during his first term, we talked about and said, okay, if Trump isn't able to do it, there's not going to be political will to get it done. But in choking out, China on intellectual property rights, you're going to need all of your trade partners on board with you to say, we're on board with this. You get on top of your intellectual property issues, and we're going to enforce this. And this is a standing order. This is a standing position by every trade partner on the globe that the U.S. has. And you handle it that way, and that would be the best chance of getting something done. I don't know, because of the China protectionist policy of the Biden administration, I don't know that that's how much leverage that would be now, because China might look at that and go, okay, if Trump did that, if Trump wins, he became president again, and let's say he goes in January 21st of next year, and goes in and says, okay, this is what we're going to do. China could look at it and go, well, you've got 4 years at the most. We'll wait it out. And so it was an opportunity then. And if there were going to be any protectionist policies, I didn't view that as much of a protectionist policy as it would be going out. And I mean, in the way that it would ultimately, if it worked, it would protect intellectual property rights, especially when it comes to technology in the U.S., yes. But the position was to weed out the bad actor that is China. And I know that's where he's going now. The problem is is that you're going to need more than just that. It's going to have to be more than tariffs.
Well, no.
It's going to have to be your trade partners from around the globe putting the pressure on China as well.
Right, but the problem with that is everybody is sensitive to prices right now. Yellen was out there. I'll play the audio cut where Janet Yellen is even saying, "Well, prices aren't coming down."
Right.
So we're still going to feel it because it doesn't matter whether it's even if whether it's 3% or even 2.5%. Remember, that rate of inflation growth is on top of everything we've seen. So it was just showing a continuation of prices. And if Trump did come in and do a 10% across the board on everything coming into the country and a 60% tariff on China, it would be rescinded within a few months. He'd have to rescind it and back off because the public prices would skyrocket through the roof.
And we joke about Walmart, but all the discount retailers as a collective, that's where you would see it.
Yeah.
And who's shopping at the dollar stores, the Dollar Trees, the Dollar Generals, and the Walmarts? It's the middle class. It's the lower and middle class. It's not the elites that are shopping there. And when you do that, that effectively is going to be a massive tax. And by the way, it also will be a very different approach by the liberal media, of course. Under a Trump administration, they're going to do nothing but stories of here's what Trump's tariffs are doing to the lower and middle class of America and how people are suffering as a result. And here's where because, you look at it like dollar stores and, now they're $1.25 stores. They changed when they changed their prices. And, that was something that everyone had to adjust to. Well, if you went in and said 60% on China, then all those little gadgets that they sell in these discount retailers, they're gonna skyrocket. They're gonna absolutely skyrocket. And I don't know how in the world you don't have something like that flying back within 90 days.
As you said, even back in the last Trump administration, when he put on the steel tariffs and aluminum tariffs and other things, prices weren't a concern.
Right.
So prices went up, and again, tariffs benefit one American interest while hurting other American interests.
Right.
For the most part, to make a political point. Sometime the point, for example, intellectual property with China, sometime the point is worth it. As you said, you have everybody else backing you up. But when you're going after your friendly trading partners as well, you really don't have anywhere to go. And if you believe that, well, and a lot of people say, well, Trump is just bluffing on the tariffs. Well, if you think he's bluffing, the Chinese might think he's bluffing too.
Right.
So what you do is you get a huge increase on American goods, making the Republican Party extremely not rating good at that point, because the last thing the American public wants right now is more price increases, and you're going to get it. And if you can, one of the things we have said about Biden is every problem that we face today, inflation, everything else that goes along with it, is because this is what government has done. This is how government has made your life harder. So if Trump went in, people will say, yes, we need to protect American jobs. Well, when your prices go up 30% or 20%, the American public changes their mind every time. Why? Because prices are about people's self-interest. It's like you see all the time. Well, everybody should go to the Buy American stores. Well, we know they exist. Why don't we go?
Well,
and we know they do online. Why don't we go?
Right. Yeah.
Because prices are higher.
Yep.
And it's that simple. And if the prices aren't higher and they compete, then it's fine. But that's the challenge. It's the same thing as we talk about taxes that we'll get to here in a little bit. Poll on taxes, where Americans said we would be willing to pay fewer taxes and get less benefits.
Yeah.
Well, it all depends on what the benefits are.
Right.
It's easy to answer that question in the abstract. When reality hits, then everybody cares about prices and everybody cares about the benefits that they get from the taxes that they pay.
Right.
if they get any benefits.
Right.
Many don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so that may be the people that are saying, well, no, I'll take a reduction in taxes, but you're going to have to reform entitlements. 51% of the budget and growing, you have no choice. But the American public doesn't wish to do that. It's cut other things. Well, what is there to cut?
I'm not getting enough. That's what you're hearing.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just reading here from the Wall Street Journal. Biden, Iran, and 3 dead Americans. The commander-in-chief, week's response to attacks puts his presidency at risk. It was bound to happen eventually, as Biden was warned repeatedly a drone or missile launched by Iran's militia proxies would elude U.S. defenses and kill American soldiers. That's exactly what happened Sunday, as 3 Americans were killed and 25 were wounded at a U.S. base in Jordan near the Syrian border. The question now is, what will the commander-in-chief do about it? Biden issued a statement Sunday that America's heart is heavy at the death of patriots who are the best of our nation. The sentiment is nice, no doubt sincere, but at this point, it's inadequate and infuriating. The sorry truth is that these casualties are a result of President Biden's policy choices. Mr. Biden has tolerated more than 150 Iranian proxy attacks on U.S. forces in the Middle East since October. Only occasionally has he or the administration registered more than a rhetorical displeasure by retaliating militarily, and then only with very limited airstrikes. The president refused to change course even after U.S. troops suffered traumatic brain injuries. A Christmas Day proxy attack in Iraq left an American U.S. pilot in a coma last week. More than a month later, the chief warrant officer was finally sitting up in a chair for the first time most of the day. His family blog said Mr. Biden vowed Sunday to hold those responsible to account at a time and in a manner of our choosing. Though that stock line rings increasingly hollow, he has no choice now other than to approve strikes in retaliation, but targeting the responsible militia is insufficient. Mr. Biden and the Pentagon are playing Mideast whack-a-mole. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows that the real orchestrator of these attacks is Iran, but the president has put his anxieties about upsetting Iran and risking escalation above his duty to defend U.S. soldiers abroad. It would have been more honest, if a sign of weakness, to withdraw American troops from the region rather than consign them to catching Iranian drones for months. The irony of Mr. Biden's strategy, avoid escalation with Iran above all else, is that he'll now have to strike back harder than if he had responded with devastating force the first time U.S. forces were hit and every time since. They probably include hitting Iranian military or commercial assets. There are certainly risks of escalation from doing so, but Iran and its proxies are already escalating, and they have no incentive to stop unless they know their own forces are at risk. Here's one idea. Put the Iranian spy ship that has been prowling the Red Sea on the ocean floor. The alternative is a growing American body count.
Yep.
We'll talk more coming up.
Bringing on the chaos. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. And then to finish that editorial in the Wall Street Journal, the alternative is a growing American body count. Iran's clients in Yemen are continuing to fire at U.S. warships in the Red Sea while holding a vital shipping lane hostage. U.S. destroyers have managed to intercept Houthi volleys in a testament to America's weapons technology and military professionalism, but eventually a drone or missile could elude U.S. defenses and sink a U.S. warship. One thing to watch is whether the administration will react to this attack by putting more pressure on Israel to stop its campaign against Hamas. This would validate the claim of the militias that they are merely targeting the U.S. because it supports Israel, and it would tell Iran that its militia drone and missile campaign has succeeded in easing pressure on Hamas. But this is how this administration thinks. Mr. Biden has spent months fretting about a broader regional war without confronting the reality that the United States is already in one. The result is that U.S. deterrence has collapsed in the region and Americans are dying. Mr. Biden's repeated displays of weakness are inviting more attacks. In the 1970s, Iran helped ruin Jimmy Carter's presidency by seizing hostages. Mr. Biden should worry that it will also take down his presidency if he won't respond with enough force that the mullahs get the message. And, you know, I'm reading Lee Zeldin, remember he ran for governor of New York, wrote over the weekend, a fatally executed withdrawal from Afghanistan, we'll also add there from Red Eye, and lied to the American public about what the generals told him he should do. The fast-tracking Nord Stream 2, removing Houthi terrorist designation, many terrible mistakes with the Biden foreign policy, but releasing billions of dollars to Iran ranks towards the top. And yes, money is fungible. Remember, all of this is being financed with money that Iran gets from oil, which the United States and Biden specifically has made available to them when it was not made available to them before.
And it's to the tune of billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And that's one more thing that could have been done with a swipe of a pen. All of this is within Biden's power.
Well, he created
this. Think about this on the over the weekend with the 3 service members killed. He says, "We will respond." When you can do this with your pen, you can choke Iran out, and you choose not to. You are allowing them to earn tons of money on the global oil marketplace, and that funds every proxy group that they want. Over and over and over again, we've seen this play out, and it's not over. The enemy's not done. And on the border. And well, if you give me what I want, then I'll close it.
Right.
You're admitting you have the ability to close it. You're not going to do it until you say you get what you want. Failure after failure after failure. Countless lives lost as a result of his defiance.
By the way, let me play this from Senator Chris Murphy the other day over the weekend. All right, Listen to this question on CNN because it is about the border. Because, really, when you think about it, we had said before when we were analyzing, Jonathan Turley saying that, that the state of Texas would make it tough, that to call this an invasion. And we're like, not really, because when you see the amount of terrorists that have gotten through and the fact that since 9/11, Congress has designated, as we know, the Houthis were designated as a terrorist organization, which means an enemy of the United States. And Biden took that classification out. Now they're putting it back on again.
Right.
But it just shows that terrorist groups, not just a country, because Turley was trying to make the point Texas isn't on solid water, legal water for the, for saying we're being invaded, because that would traditionally be a foreign country invading us. And it was like, well, yeah, but you can make the case that the federal government is allowing terrorist groups to invade and the cartels to invade on American soil. And it's based on the fact that we didn't used to call terrorist organizations enemies of the United States. Now we do, quite frequently we do that, and that allows the president to go anywhere in the world, in any country, and attack those terrorist groups once they are designated as a terrorist group and an enemy of the United States. If they do something, we are, because Congress has authorized it, gives the president the authority to do it. So I just want to play this here very quickly here, because this is on CNN. Here we go.
Republicans, including the House Speaker, argue, a lot of them, not the ones you're dealing with, but a lot of them argue that President Biden already has the authority that he needs to secure the border. And they're criticizing this deal that you've been negotiating. What do you make of that, of the notion that President Biden already has tools and he doesn't need more yet?
Well, it's just not true. It's a political talking point.
That's a lie from Chris Murphy.
Yep.
That's a lie.
Yeah, it is.
Everyone knows. I'm glad that Elon Musk came out and said, no, he can do it with the stroke of a pen.
Right.
Everybody knows it. He created the problem. He can stop it. Border Patrol Union has said over and over again, we don't need the money.
Well, that's it.
This is a policy question, not a money question.
Well, that's what Murphy's implying, that the president's hands are tied on the border. Think about that ludicrous position.
Absolute lie from the Democrats.
Yep. It is a lie.
Yep. And by Republicans going along with it, some Senate Republicans, they're enabling that lie to continue.
Yep, you own it. You own it when you side with them. There's no way around that. Langford being censured by the GOP in his state.
Yep. And then when you think about it, part of this deal is to fund Israel in their defense of Hamas, that the president has enabled the funding of Hamas through taking the sanctions off of Iran.
Right.
And by no longer having the Houthis in Yemen as an official terrorist group, now they're going back to saying, oh, okay, well, now we're going to make them a terrorist group again. Did it all because I have to reverse anything that Trump did.
Yeah.
That worked.
Yeah, right.
And this is what you get. But people like Democratic Senator Chris Murphy have to lie. They can't tell you the truth on what's going on at the border. They can't tell you the truth. They have to be pathological liars for this administration, which created the problem at the border and enabled Iran to be able to refund all of its terrorist proxies that now has gotten American soldiers killed.
Yep.
Just amazing. You think about it. So we need to fund Israel. It's just, I'm sorry, but it's just, my chuckle there is, it's because it's so unbelievable. We must fund Israel. We've got to fund Israel in the fight against Hamas. I don't disagree with that,
right,
to help them. But when you put the entire equation together, we must help Israel to go after Hamas and Hezbollah and whoever else is going to be attacking them. And we need money to protect troops, as the president reversed a policy that was putting monetary sanctions on the Iranians, and when he took it off, ensured that they would be funded with billions of new dollars. And they tell you, well, no, money isn't fungible, that this will only go to humanitarian organizations.
Right.
Oh, just like the humanitarian organization, the UN humanitarian organization in Gaza,
right,
they found what? dozens of them involved
Yeah.
in helping Hamas.
Yes, directly involved.
I mean, we're Democrats are insane. I'm sorry. This is insane. Pure insane. And every Democrat listening right now knows that. It's
And
insanity what we're doing here.
Here's the thing. It's being delivered, the whole thing with the UN. I mean, there really is no debate over that. The organization's already moved against those people and letting them go and the whole thing. They're admitting the wrongdoing. Everybody can see what's going on because it's delivered to you daily. Murphy is a hack. It's the only thing he's got.
What did we get him on a couple weeks ago?
There was a couple of things, actually.
It was
There were a number of things.
There's so many that you start losing track.
Right. But between Murphy and Goldman, was it something on the Hunter Biden thing?
It might have been Hunter Biden, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just going, okay, everything. I just put Chris Murphy's name in Google to see if it came up. But everything is on the border, every single story. So, yeah, I think it probably was on Hunter Biden.
Right. But you look at just about anything right now on the plate. The Biden administration is the cause of all of this. The broken border. Everything that's going on with Iran's proxies right now. You saw where, was it last week that Austin made his first appearance back?
Yeah.
Are we sure about that this time? Do we know that for sure? I mean, it's just embarrassing.
Oh, no. It was on the loneliness thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's what Murphy was talking about.
Yeah, right. Churches and what was the other thing? Community pools?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. That people are
Oh,
lonely.
my gosh.
People are lonely.
Yeah, we want money, so people can, so people can go to church and to community pools.
And that was it, yeah.
Like his brain was just firing off, randomly. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Well, that's why we asked the question. That was one of the times we asked the question, is everybody doing drugs?
Yeah.
Because it's like you cannot have any type of critical thinking mind and abide by, what Democrats are saying today because it's pure insanity. Look, if you listen to this show, we will criticize Republicans, and we've criticized the Republican senators on this budget deal. But the left are the ones that have promoted this and created this, and Biden created what was going on at the border. I mean, it's pure insanity.
Yeah.
And you can talk to the people that have been involved in it, whether it's Tom Homan, who's been with the Border Patrol since 84 and said, nope, this was calculated by the Biden administration. You can talk to the Border Patrol union that represents the actual Border Patrol agents who can't speak publicly.
Right.
They can't speak publicly and be criticizing who they work for, but we know it's there. And so the Border Patrol union is the one. They're not talking about money. They're talking about the fact that they can't do their jobs.
Right.
And saying it's not about them. Think about this. A union saying it's not about the money.
Yeah.
How bad are things when the union representatives say it's not about money?
It's about policy.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the show, most Americans feel they pay too much in taxes. We'll get to that. The specifics on it. You saw the record-shattering border report late afternoon Friday dump. The Biden administration rolled out a record-shattering border encounters report in a Friday afternoon news dump. The monthly Southwest Land Border Encounters report came out later than normal and revealed a shocking look at the apprehension of at least 250,000 migrants in the month of December. The report, released on Friday afternoon, shows the Border Patrol agents along the southwest border with Mexico apprehended 250,000 migrants who illegally crossed the border in December. That's up by 21% over the numbers apprehended a year ago.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Over there is Eric Harley. Over here, me.
You.
Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right, so new Associated Post. Associated Press polling. A majority of taxpayers feel they pay too much in taxes, with many saying that they receive a poor value in return. According to a new poll from the University of Chicago's Harris School, 2/3 of U.S. taxpayers say they spend too much on federal income taxes. Now, the interesting thing there, as we pointed out when we were promoting this a little bit earlier, is that roughly 50% of Americans don't pay any taxes at all.
Right.
So there's an overlap there that looks like of about 17% of the public that pays nothing. I mean, maybe I'm wrong in my math, but that's what I got from it. Roughly 17% pay nothing in taxes and believe that's too much.
Yeah.
About 7 in 10 say the same about local property taxes. And the 3 that didn't live in Texas and just got their reduction on their bill.
Yeah.
While roughly 6 in 10 say they feel that way about the state sales tax. Generally speaking, Republicans are more likely than Democrats to view taxes as unfair, to say they pay too much in taxes, and see taxes as a poor value. The poll found that few U.S. adults have a high level of confidence that the institution that ultimately uses their tax dollars, whether the federal government or local school districts, spend those taxes in the best interest of people like them. But people tend to trust, this is why we promote federalism.
Mm-hmm.
But people tend to trust governing bodies closer to home with their tax dollars slightly more. 16% are extremely or very confident in their local school districts compared to 6% for the federal government. Adults who are 60 and older are more likely than younger adults to perceive taxes generally as fair. Chris Berry, a professor at the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy, who was involved in the creation of the poll, said that overall, public opinion about taxes and trust in government has declined. That's not a surprise. He sees the poll results as partly reflecting increased political polarization, but says the public has long typically trusted local government more than the federal government because they're closer to you.
Yeah.
One of the things you'll hear is there's no Democrat or Republican way to collect the trash or pave the streets, we tend to think of local government as less partisan. Among those who pay federal income taxes, half say they would prefer, listen to this here. Among those who pay federal income taxes, half say they would prefer having fewer government services if it meant reducing their bill. 1/3 would keep their taxes the same in exchange for the same services. 16% would opt to increase taxes for more services, as long as they're not the ones that get the increased taxes,
Right.
I'm going to guess.
Yeah, have somebody else pay it.
About 1 in 4 taxpayers say they get a good value from paying either federal income tax, state sales tax, or local property tax. About 1 in 3 in each case say it's a poor value. Roughly 4 in 10 say the value is neither good nor bad. I'm spending my money, here's my taxes. I don't pay attention. According to the poll, most U.S. adults say they find either federal income tax or local property tax unfair, and about half say the same about the state income tax, sales tax, and the federal Social Security tax. Relatively few U.S. adults, say they understand how the amount they owe is calculated. Only about 2 in 10 adults say they understand extremely or very well how amounts are determined for their local property tax. Oh, okay. About a quarter say they grasp the calculations for federal income tax. About 3 in 10 say they comprehend how state sales tax is calculated. Well, only about 2 in 10 adults say they understand extremely or very well how amounts are determined for their local property tax. I don't know why, but Mar-a-Lago comes to mind.
Well,
when the judge had no idea.
Are any of those 80%? How many of those 80% are homeowners? I assume that they all are.
No, that's a great point. Yeah.
I by the way that they phrase it when they say their local property tax, but it doesn't necessarily say that.
Yeah, they say only about 2 in 10 U.S. adults. So these aren't likely voters. They're not registered voters. These are just going and asking adults. So apparently you're not asking the question. It doesn't
because
say,
they should qualify them if they're homeowners.
Yeah, it doesn't,
then do you know?
Yeah, it doesn't say U.S. adult homeowners.
Right. Now you're paying a property tax because if you're renting, because if you're not buying, you're renting, or you're living with mom and dad. But if you're renting, you're also paying a property tax. It's just not going to be itemized in that way. But you should know how property taxes are figured.
Right.
That should be a concern.
Yeah, if you're a renter, you're paying the property tax.
You're paying the property tax.
Right.
It's just not attributed to you directly.
Right.
You're just facilitating the money.
Yeah, so it just I mean, I wasn't surprised by any of it except for the fact that half of Americans say they're willing to pay lower taxes to get fewer services.
Yeah. Right.
Who are those Americans?
Well, that's it, I'd like to see those. Like with every poll, we have so many questions. Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Everybody sit down. You can't go home just yet.
Look, we just read the poll. We're not saying we believe everything in the polls.
No.
And that would be one of them.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite story was the Saturday Night Live story.
Oh,
NBC's Saturday Night Live was mocked after suggesting the term debanking was a made-up word by former President Trump.
right.
During the Weekend Update segment, cast member Colin Jost insisted he didn't know what the hell debank means while commenting on one of Trump's recent speeches. Trump did have a slight stumble this week while talking about banks, and he introduced an interesting new term called debank. I don't know what the hell debank means, but you might have to take de-ambulance to de-doctor. Well, they heard it afterwards because debanking, also called de-risking, is a real term used to refer to banks closing people or organizations' accounts, sometimes without appeal, after perceiving them to be a legal, financial, or reputational threat.
Yeah.
The clip went viral as social media users mocked the show for not understanding an increasingly prevalent term. The woke smugness of SNL is out of control, said one commentator. SNL is in such a hurry to dunk on Trump that they make themselves look like idiots again. It's pretty embarrassing for SNL. Wow.
You know, they have the ability to look it up before they write. All the writers in that room. And I'm guessing Jost was in that room with that writer. He writes a lot of those lines for SNL Update.
And they have here California State Senate candidate Michael Oxford explains this is similar, because we have played this audio before. This is similar to when Dennis Prager said that they are putting tampons in men's bathrooms, and Bill Maher's entire audience laughed at him. The left doesn't even realize what's happening until it's too late.
Yeah. Right.
Then their cognitive dissonance forces them to justify why it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because debanking, de-risking is a common term.
Yeah. Right.
And as you and I were saying, because so somebody comes up with this, remember, they do this, they do rehearsals on it over and over again. They sit around a conference table. What's the head of the SNL? I can't think of his name.
Lorne Michaels.
And Lorne Michaels is there. They go over every single
He's
thing.
in those meetings.
And there are skits that they've been doing all week that don't make it to the live show.
Right.
So the entire group is in there watching this, from the actors to the writers to the directors and producers. Nobody knows that debanking is actually a term.
Yeah. It's because you're writing the line. The premise of the joke is that Trump is making up a new word.
Right.
Google.
That's the thing. All you got to do is
5 seconds, you would know. Oh, it's actually a term. Okay, that's not going to be funny because it's something real.
I'm going to do it just right now. Debanking.
Yeah. Well, in the response,
I put D in and it comes right up because
yeah,
the story is there it is, debank.
And on all the social media responses correcting SNL, on a number of them, it had it right there.
Yeah. Debanking, also known within the banking industry as de-risking, is a closure of people's organizations' bank accounts by banks who perceive the account holders to pose a financial, legal, regulatory, or reputational risk to the bank.
For instance, let's say there was a guy named Hunter. And Hunter were setting up, I don't know, some LLCs and their accounts in, let's say, multiple accounts. And let's say that those accounts were attributed to various members of Hunter's own family. And the money was coming in, and those banks were very, very curious as to how that money was getting there and what it was a part of, something like that. Those banks could debank Hunter or those LLCs if they believed there was a risk.
Well, and it really started back, it was in 2022 in the UK, when they actually found out that banks, the government organization came out and said banks, some banks had been closing on accounts for political reasons. So, and
on the political side of it. But if they believe, if let's say you have a ton of cash deposits and you can't explain them, and a bank thinks, well, we can't get we've reached out to this customer and asked them why all these large cash deposits. Do you run a cash business? And do you need us to open a business account if that's the case? We need to know what it is because we have to answer to regulators, and we need to know what these large cash deposits are.
Well, and it really goes after Canada, though. It really is where, when Trump brings it up, it's because of the Canadian situation with that. So he wasn't talking about that. Trump was referring to being closed for, that we will never let debanking happen in the United States, which was closing conservatives' accounts.
For political reasons.
For political
Yes,
reasons,
right.
right. That's what Trump was bringing up.
Right. That's the point there. But you can see that at play if a bank says, we're not, we don't want to do business this way. And if you can't back up what you're doing here, then they can disassociate with you. You don't have an inherent right to have a bank account with any bank.
No.
And debanking is something that's very real, and how SNL just, glossed over it. Even if it's something, because here's the problem. There can be something, and Daryl Hammond used to talk about this. There can be something that happens, and one of the voices that Daryl does, one of those individuals, is in the news on a Friday. And they call him at home Friday afternoon. Hey, can you do this voice? Can you impersonate this person? Hey, can you be ready to do a skit by tomorrow night? Sometimes they do update things, but there's no excuse. If you wanted to add that line at the last minute between dress rehearsal and live, they do a dress rehearsal on Saturday night before live. Well, you could still Google it. There's no excuse.
Yeah, it takes 5 seconds to figure, because if you're going, hey, he's using this word debanking, is that even a word? Let's check before we write this bit.
The premise of the joke is that he made it up.
Right.
Let's make sure that he's making it up beforehand so we don't get burned on it, and they got burned.
Yeah. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. This proposed bill in Maryland that would ban anyone from carrying a gun unless they had at least $300,000 in liability insurance.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
And bullets are $5 million
a piece.
You could own them, but they're $5 million each.
Yes, because of the extra tax on that.
Right.
We'll get to that coming up here.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Gun owners in Maryland would be required to buy at least $300,000 in liability insurance or forfeit their ability to carry a firearm under a new bill. The controversial legislation introduced by Delegate Terry Hill of Howard County, a Democrat, would prohibit the wear or carry of a gun anywhere in the state unless the individual has obtained a liability insurance policy of at least $300,000. A person may not wear or carry a firearm unless the person has obtained it and is covered by liability insurance issued by an insurer authorized to do business in the state under the insurance article to cover claims for property damage, bodily injury, or death arising from an accident resulting from a person's use or storage of a firearm, or up to $300,000 for damages arising from the same incident, in addition to interest and costs, the proposed Maryland legislation says. According to the proposed law, the liability requirement does not apply to members of the military or federal law enforcement officers. There is also an insurance exemption if you carry the gun around you unloaded. So does this mean they can't get you if you keep it in your home? It's only if you take it out? It sounds like that.
That's what it sounds like.
Person may not wear or carry a firearm.
Yeah.
What they're saying is if you wear it out in public, then you would have to do it. Now, we know why they're doing it. I did check for some of the prices to see if, because personal firearm liability insurance already exists right now. Looking at just one insurance company, if you wanted $250,000 combined single limit and $50,000 defense reimbursement, that would be $75 a year. $500,000 combined single limit, $100,000 defense reimbursement, sublimit, $125 a year. So be somewhere in between. Looks like it'd be probably around $100. You would think.
Do they differentiate again between carrying it outside the home?
No, I
that
think
policy.
No, it does not. It just says this liability insurance should receive coverage to help protect against costs associated with hunting or shooting accidents, accidental discharge, lost or stolen firearms, and lawful personal defense. So anything that may come because of that. So if you have accidental discharge, that could happen at home. Because they say with hunting and shooting accidents, lost or stolen firearms. Accidental discharge occurs when the firearm suffers from mechanical malfunction, when the firearm is dropped, when the firearm is cleaned or more. With personal firearm liability insurance, lawful gun owners are protected against the cost associated with an accidental discharge claim that could happen at home. I added it could happen at home. lost or stolen firearm liability. Even lawful gun owners who store their firearms securely and lend them carefully can be held legally responsible for what is done with the firearm after it is lost, lent, or stolen. If your legally possessed firearm is lost or stolen and an incident occurs, personal firearm liability insurance will protect against the cost associated with the claims. Should you need to ever lawfully use a legally possessed firearm to defend yourself with reasonable use of force, it sounds like if you illegally use it for anything, nothing is covered. That'd be the interesting thing. Because they're saying, there's Maryland bill is for the guns, basically guns that are used in negligence or illegally in some way. The cost of people being shot. Well, what if the insurance company doesn't cover that? If you do something illegal, they're not going to cover it.
Yeah, but the one policy that you read off covers accidental. If you drop your gun, any accidental discharge?
Accidental, yes. Accidental, lost or stolen firearm liability, and lawful personal defense. There's nothing that if you do something illegal,
right,
that your insurance is going to pay, will pay you off. It won't, but it doesn't look like hunting and shooting accident liability. Are they making the case that if you use it illegally, that no liability can be paid to somebody who sues you?
Because it sounds like it's covered if it's deemed an accident.
If it's deemed an accident, yes. Right. But if you illegally use a gun.
Well, yeah, I don't know any. Yeah, that would be. I don't know why they would cover that.
Well, no, neither do I. But I just wonder because because the claim from the politicians are if you own a gun, you will use it wrong in some way.
Right.
And so because the insurance covers you, now you voluntarily get the insurance here. I mean, you're not required to do it, but it protects you. It protects you when lawfully using it. What they're saying here is this insurance is needed to cover the costs
for the damage you cause.
For shootings, for the damage that you cause elsewhere. Interesting. I just wonder. This is years.
But the lawmakers would change the parameters of how it's required, what type of coverage is required. Because the devil's in the details, and that often, and I can see it right now, that will change what the insurance companies are actually offering.
A few years back, I tried to get an umbrella insurance plan. Can't get it. All I had to do is I'm in the media. Won't give it. They didn't ask what I did in the media. Just, are you in the media? Yes. Sorry, you cannot get a general umbrella liability insurance plan. So I guess my thing would be how many, what would be the cost of it, and then what would be deemed unreasonable by courts.
Well, what is first unreasonable? What is deemed unreasonable by those writing the bill? Because that's going to determine what the insurance companies charge.
Yes.
However they outline it is how those policies are going to have to be tailored and written. That's where the added cost comes in.
And as I asked you, we look at voting and the whole thing of poll taxes. For voting. Sorry, that's a right. And owning a gun is a right. So how much can you be charged? Now, that right, you can own a firearm, but you need to pay for the gun. You need to pay for any reasonable taxes that are, charged. Some of the taxes they talk about on making bullets, whatever it is, $50 a piece, that would fail. The courts would knock that down.
Right.
As being unreasonable. You're charging way more to keep. It's basically a de facto ban on a significant number of people who couldn't afford to buy $50 bullets.
It also, in this case, sets up an additional charge. We can take your gun from you because you don't have insurance.
Yeah.
It's an
Good point.
additional
Right.
way of taking the gun from you. Because you can see it, you'd likely see a lot of that. Well, my insurance lapsed or whatever it might be. Or you didn't have the proper policy. Sorry, hand it over.
Here's one. Forget about hand it over. What is the penalty for not having? They don't have it here. I don't see it. I don't have it here in this article. I'll go look it up. What is the penalty for not having insurance? Is it jail time?
I would assume that the way they're going to have to write it, it would be, it would relate to illegal possession of a firearm because the law requires you to be insured. And if you're not, then that's part of illegal possession of a firearm.
You're right.
And then you have
Yeah.
a charge against you, illegal possession of a firearm
Right.
on your record.
You have, unauthorized use of it.
Right.
But if it's unloaded on you, so if it's unloaded,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got clips
Mm-hmm.
that you can pop in very quickly, that's what they're saying. If it's unloaded, if you're carrying it unloaded, you don't need the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can see how you solve that problem, right?
Yeah, but you can't have the clips in possession. There's no way they would write the law that way.
How are they going to write the law? It could be interesting.
Well, because
I see how they write the law is.
if you're carrying an unloaded gun, first of all, that becomes especially dangerous because you have to behave as if every gun is loaded. And now you've created a whole new problem. But on the books, you've created a way to go after people's guns,
Mm-hmm.
charge them with something very similar to, if it's not deemed officially, illegal possession of a firearm. That goes on their record, boom. Then they're done.
That's right. Probably can't ever own a gun again, right?
Right.
That might be the punishment
Yep.
of it.
Then the next gun you try to buy, your background check comes back. Sorry. That's a no. And it all has to do with keeping up with your insurance. Because you're likely not going to get 100% of people that would keep up with it. Even if they were trying to keep up with it, you're going to have people that lapse in their payments to the insurance companies.
Mm-hmm. You miss a payment.
Yep.
You're unemployed.
Right.
You can't make the payments this
Right.
month. Sorry, you have to get rid of your gun.
Right. Or you can't take it with you. You got to put it up. Yeah. I can't wait for the first court challenge on this, and there will be many.
I'm going to have to actually look at this bill.
Yeah.
I got to find the actual bill to see what's in it.
Yeah.
When it comes to because you're assuming there has to be what the enforcement would be and what the punishment would be for
Right.
it in the bill somewhere.
Right. Yeah, there has to be an enforcement mechanism somewhere in that bill.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I found the legislation. Subject to paragraph 2 of the subsection, a person who violates this section, this is the insurance, is guilty of a misdemeanor and on conviction is subject to loss of the person's right to possess a regulated firearm, rifle, and a shotgun.
There you go. Give us a reason. And we'll take it away. Create as many hoops as you can for people, law-abiding citizens. Anyone believe that the bad guys are going to run out and get insurance? And if they're found to not get insurance on their guns, they're going to follow the law? No. Absolutely not. It doesn't affect them, only law-abiding citizens. And if you don't, then all of a sudden, you're no longer a law-abiding citizen. Sorry, you can't have one.
It's a misdemeanor, so I'm assuming there would be, I don't see it here in the bill, I'm just scanning it very quickly, if there would be jail time. It does say you can have the gun removed, but I don't know if it's just whether just the law would be under whatever class misdemeanor it would be under state law in general. But yeah, you would lose your right to own a gun if you got caught carrying a loaded gun without the liability insurance. So it doesn't say temporary or 90 days, which means it would be permanent.
Right.
And you couldn't own anything.
Right.
Because it's just isn't for handguns. This is rifles, anything.
Yep.
Not antique pistols, though, they say. Or starter gun. And yeah. I mean, we knew this was coming. It'd be interesting to see what the courts would look at and say, nope, sorry, that's gone too far.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.